Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Jana Vallabha Giribaradhari Yashodanandana Bhaja Jana Ranjana Jaya Prabhukara Jaya Prabhukara Prabhukara Jaya Prabhukara Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Jayam Vishnupad Harman Sukri Prajakachaya Stotras Jasi Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We read from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 14. Ideal Family Life. Text 15. Devan, Rishin, Nri, Bhutani, Pitrin, Atmanam, Anvaham, Svavritya, Agata, Vitena, Yajeta, Purusham, Pratak, Devan Rishin Ribhutani, Vitrinatmanamanvaham, Svavrityagata Vitena, Yajeta Purusham Pratak, Devan Rishin Ribhutani, Vitrinatmanamanvaham, Svavrityagata Vitena, Yajeta Purusham Pratak, Devan, unto the demigods, Rishin, unto the great sages, Nri, unto human society, Bhutani, unto the living entities in general, between unto the forefathers, Atmanam, one's self, or the Supreme Self, Anvaham, daily, Svavritya, by one's means of livelihood, Agata Vitena, money that comes automatically, Yajeta, one should worship, Purusham, the person situated in everyone's heart, Pritak, separately. Every day one should worship the Supreme Being who is situated in everyone's heart. And on this basis, one should separately worship the demigods, the saintly persons, ordinary human beings and living entities, one's forefathers, and one's self. In this way, one is able to worship the Supreme Being in the core of everyone's heart. There's no purport to this verse, but I will just comment in brief that the basis of all worship is the Supreme Being who is situated in everyone's heart as Paramatma and who is also situated in the spiritual sky as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan. And on this basis, one should worship the demigods who supply different necessities of life, the saintly persons who distribute spiritual knowledge, especially the knowledge of devotional service, ordinary human beings and living entities who are everywhere, one's forefathers who have given us the families in which we've taken birth, from which we've obtained our bodies, and oneself, who is part and parcel of the Supreme Self. In this way, one is able to worship the Supreme Being in the core of everyone's heart. In other words, in Vedic civilization or in God consciousness, we worship the Supreme Lord, but we see everyone as an expansion of the Supreme Lord, an expansion of the energy of the Supreme Lord. And we're conscious of their relation to the Supreme Lord, and thus we respect and worship everyone. This is a very beautiful culture. It's mentioned here that in this way one also worships one's own self, because one's self, the Jivatma, is part and parcel of the Supreme Self, Paramatma. Unfortunately, in the present so-called civilization, people identify with the body and they worship their bodies. They worship their selves as their bodies. And they're very selfish. But we are developing a different culture, or partaking of a different culture in which we worship everyone else and think of ourselves last. Now text 16. Yarhyatmano dikaradya sarvasyur yagya sampada vaitani kena vidina agnihotra dinaya jet. Yarhyatmano dikaradya sarvasyur yagya sampada vaitani kena vidina agnihotra dinaya jet. Please repeat. Yarhi, when, Atmana, of oneself, Adhikara Adya, things possessed by him under full control. Sarva, everything. Syu, becomes. Yagya Sampada, paraphernalia for performing yajna, or the means for pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vaitanikena, with authorized books that direct the performance of yajna. Vidina, according to the regulative principles. Agnihotra Adina, by offering sacrifices to the fire, etc. Yajat, one should worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Translation: when one is enriched with wealth and knowledge, which are under his full control, and by means of which he can perform yajna, or please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one must perform sacrifices, offering oblations to the fire according to the directions of the sastras. In this way, one should worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Please repeat. When one is enriched with wealth and knowledge, which are under his full control, and by means of which he can perform yajna, or please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one must perform sacrifices, offering oblations to the fire, according to the directions of the Shastras. In this way, one should worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. If a grihastha, or householder, is sufficiently educated in Vedic knowledge and has become sufficiently rich to offer worship to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he must perform yajnas as directed by the authorized scriptures. Bhagavad Gita 3:9 clearly says, Yagyarthat karmano nyatra loko yam karma bandhana. Everyone may be engaged in his occupational duties, but the result of these duties should be offered for sacrifice to satisfy the Supreme Lord. If one is fortunate enough to possess transcendental knowledge, as well as the money with which to perform sacrifices, one must do it according to the directions given in the Shastras. It is said in Srimad Bhagavatam 12.3.52, Krite yad yayato Vishnu, tretayam yajato makai, dvapare paricharyayam, kalota dhari kirtanat. The entire Vedic civilization aims at satisfying the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This was possible in Satya Yuga by meditation upon the Supreme Lord within the core of one's heart, and in Treta Yuga by the performance of costly yajnas. The same goal could be achieved in Dwapara Yuga by the worship of the Lord in the temple, and in this age of Kali, one can achieve the same goal by performing Sankirtan Yajna. Therefore, one who has education and wealth must use them to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead by helping the Sankirtan movement that has already begun, the Hare Krishna movement, or the Krishna consciousness movement. All educated and wealthy persons must join this movement, since money and education are meant for service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If money and education are not engaged in the service of the Lord, these valuable assets must be engaged in the service of Maya. The education of so-called scientists, philosophers, and poets is now engaged in the service of Maya, and the wealth of the rich is also engaged in Maya's service. The service of Maya, however, creates a chaotic condition in the world. Therefore, the wealthy man and the educated man should sacrifice their knowledge and opulence by dedicating them for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord and joining the Sankirtan movement. Yagyai Sankirtana Prayar Yajanti Hi Sumedasa. Translation again. When one is enriched with wealth and knowledge, which are under his full control, and by means of which he can perform yajna, or please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one must perform sacrifices, offering oblations to the fire according to the directions of the sastras. In this way, one should worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, here in Srimad Bhagavatam, we find the instruction that we should use whatever we have in sacrifice to please the Supreme Lord. Sarva means everything. Everything, Su, becomes yajna sampada, paraphernalia for performing yajna, or pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Srimad Bhagavatam says, prana artha diya vacha, that whatever we have, prana, our life, artha, our wealth, diya, our intelligence, and vacha, our words, all should be engaged for the benefit of others. The two instructions that from the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam and this from the 7th canto are not different. The Supreme Lord is the origin of all. He is the root of all existence. So when we serve Him, automatically we serve all of His parts and parcels. Yata Tarvarmula nisechanena, that by watering the root of a tree, the trunk, the branches, the leaves, all the different parts are automatically watered. And by feeding food to the stomach, all of the different limbs of the body are automatically nourished. So by performing sacrifice for the Supreme Lord, by pleasing the Supreme Lord, all living entities are benefited. And as also mentioned in this verse, vidina, according to regulative principles. We cannot manufacture our own system or our own method for pleasing God. We must follow the regulative principles. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu says that a so-called display of devotion that is performed without reference to the revealed scriptures simply creates a disturbance in society. Shriti, Shruti, Puranadi, one must follow these shastras. That is called here Vaitanikena, authorized books that direct the performance of yajna. So, as we know, in Kali Yuga, the recommended sacrifice is Sankirtan Yajna, as mentioned in the scripture, and therefore the injunction in the present verse to use whatever one has, whatever knowledge one has, whatever wealth one has, in the performance of yajna is fulfilled according to Shastra by the performance of Sankirtan Yajna. And the actual performance of Sankirtan Yajna, which means the glorification of the Lord, is being implemented on a large scale in a systematic way by the present Hare Krishna movement or Krishna consciousness movement, International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada very directly says that one should support this movement with one's knowledge and wealth, at least. Prana, best is, you can give your life. Artha, if you're unable to give your life, you can give your wealth. Diya, if you don't have wealth to give, then diya, and you can contribute your intelligence. Use your intelligence to help the Krishna consciousness movement. And if you don't have so much intelligence, then vacha, use your words. Tell people to chant Hare Krishna and come to the temple. Tell them to read Srila Prabhupada's books. Prana Artha Diya Vacha. And that will please the Supreme Lord. And when the Supreme Lord is pleased, we will naturally become happy. Srila Prabhupada used to tell the story. It's coming to that point that we mentioned, that by putting food in the stomach, all the limbs of the body are nourished. That once the different limbs of the body had a meeting and they decided that they're doing all the work, they're feeding all the food to the stomach's getting all the benefit, and therefore they should go on strike. So they went on strike, and of course they became weak. They're getting weaker and weaker and weaker. So they had another meeting, and they decided that they were better off when they were serving the stomach. Because by serving the stomach, they benefited. We can't enjoy separately from the Supreme Lord. I mean, we can try, but that is not the method to enjoy. And we will fail if we try to do so. Srila Prabhupada gave another example that if the hand, suppose there's a nice rasgulla, and there are, this is not just theoretical, there definitely are. So suppose there's a nice rasgulla, and if the hand thinks, I'm going to enjoy directly and tries to like squeeze and absorb the rasgulla directly, it won't work. One has to put the rasgulla in the mouth, and ultimately from the mouth it is chewed and goes into the stomach. And that way the hand and all the other parts of the body become satisfied. So this is the basic principle of sacrifice, the basic principle of devotion, that we are part and parcel of Krishna, and therefore our duty is to serve him. And when he's pleased and satisfied, we automatically become happy. It's a very simple principle. We have heard it before, most of us. We may have even repeated it. But when it comes to our practical life, what is actually the focus of our attention? What is actually the center of our activity? Is it Krishna, the super soul? Or is it me? And when I say me, I don't mean me, the soul, because if the central point is the soul, and one understands that the soul is part and parcel of Krishna, then Krishna is the center. But when we identify with the body, as most people do, and we think I am the body and everything in relation to the body is mine, meant for me to control and ultimately enjoy, then we lose track of our actual identity and our actual purpose in life. And this happens. We are prone to become absorbed in ourselves, in the bodily concept, and to forget Krishna as the supreme enjoyer. And therefore, we are often disturbed. We are often disturbed. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna gives the formula for becoming peaceful. And Bhoktaram Yagya Tapasam. One has to understand that Krishna is the enjoyer of all sacrifices and austerities. We do austerities to earn money, to get an education, to earn money. Everyone does these austerities. But usually they do them thinking that if I get a good education, I'll benefit. I'll be able to earn more money. I think if I earn a lot of money, I will enjoy. So they're not thinking that Krishna is the enjoyer. They're thinking they'll enjoy. They'll enjoy. First and foremost, they will enjoy, and then along with them, their family members and relatives and friends will enjoy. Bhoktaram Yagita Samsarvaloka Maheshwaram. Krishna is the supreme proprietor of all planetary systems. And we agree, we know it, and we say it. Krishna is the proprietor of all the planetary systems. But as one person commented, didn't he leave a little for me? I mean, he can have the rest. That's all right. He can have all the planets and suns and moons and stars, but should leave a little for me. So we think that everything belongs to Krishna, except he did leave a house and a wife and children and some money and a car and various paraphernalia for me. Bhoktaram Yagyatapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram Suridam Sarvabhutanam. Krishna is the best friend of every living entity. So we should have faith that Krishna is our best friend. If we don't have faith that Krishna is our best friend, we will look for another best friend. And the Bhagavatam explains that in the bodily concept of life, materialistic householders, they take shelter of the fallible soldiers of wife and children and relatives and household paraphernalia. The material world, living in the material world is a struggle. It's a great fight. So in that fight, we want some forces to support us in our effort. So we have our wife, we have our children, we have our house, we have our money, we have our paraphernalia. But in that struggle, these are fallible soldiers. They will fall. Every one of them will fall in the battle. And we will also fall in the battle. We will be defeated and destroyed. So the real person who can help us is Krishna. He's the best friend. He will understand us and care for us and actually help us. So if we understand that Krishna is the proprietor, he is the enjoyer, he is our best friend, then we can be peaceful. But nobody's peaceful. And they're not peaceful because they think they're the enjoyers, they're the proprietors. And either they look for other friends, material friends to be their best friends, or they think they can be the best friend of others. Like the political candidates. I'll be your friend. I'll help you. I'll solve your problems. So nobody is peaceful. one can be peaceful only when one understands that Krishna is the supreme proprietor, the supreme enjoyer, and the best friend. And one engages wholly and solely in the service of the Lord. Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kami Sakala Ashanta. Krishna Bhakta Nishkam Ata Eva Shanta. Those who want material enjoyment, Bhukti. Those who want impersonal liberation, Mukti. Those who want mystic perfection, Siddhi. They all have some selfish desire, and therefore none of them is peaceful. Only the devotees of Krishna, pure devotees of Krishna, have no selfish desire, and therefore only they are peaceful. So we are always disturbed. That's Kali Yuga. Manda Sumanda Mateo Manda Bhagya Yupadritaha. Always disturbed, identifying with the body, trying to possess and control and enjoy things for the pleasure of the body, and always quarreling. Kali Yuga means the age of quarrel. Quarrel is everywhere. Kali. Quarreling over who's going to possess, who's going to control, who's going to enjoy. It's everywhere. The nations are quarreling. Within the nation, different factions are quarreling. Husbands and wives are quarreling. Brothers and sisters are quarreling. Business partners are quarreling. Everyone is quarreling. So it is a very disturbed situation. And we want relief. We've come to the doctor, Srila Prabhupada, we've come to the pharmacy. Prabhupada actually was a pharmacist. In Grihastha Ashram, we've come to the pharmacy. The medicine is there, the cure is there. Very simple. Engage everything for the pleasure of the Lord. Sacrifice everything for the Sankirtan movement. But alas, we don't do it. The medicine is there, the doctor is there, everything is there, the prescription, everything is there, but we don't take it. That is our misfortune. Srila Prabhupada used to refer to one cartoon that appeared in a newspaper in which an old man and an old lady were sitting across from each other. And the old lady was saying, chant, chant, chant. And her husband was saying, can't, can't, can't. And that's the situation in Kali Yuga. We tell people, chant, 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 but they can't. So many excuses, no time, no peace of mind, no energy. And that is also yajna, Sankirtan yajna. Of course, it means congregational chanting of the holy name, but individual chanting of the holy name in japa is also yajna. It's mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita by Lord Krishna himself. Yajnanam japa yajyosmi. That amongst sacrifices, I am the sacrifice of chanting the holy name, japa. that is also yajna. That is also sacrificing one's time and energy for the pleasure of the Lord. And if we can chant our rounds and join the devotees in kirtan in the proper spirit, this letting go all of these false conceptions, but in the proper spirit that Krishna is the Supreme Lord, He's my best friend, He's the Supreme Proprietor, I'm His property, not only my wife and children and household paraphernalia, but I myself am His property. Manasa deha geha yogi chumar arapilupade Nanda Kishore. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he was exemplary householder. He prayed Manasa, my mind, Deha, my body, Yogi Chumar, whatever little I have beyond that, means my wife, my children, my house, whatever other assets I have, Yogi Chumar, Arapilu Tuipada, I offer to the lotus feet of Nanda Kishore. And in that mood of surrendering everything, we can chant and dance and be happy, take prasad, hear about Krishna, and be peaceful and happy. But even if we make these other efforts, chanting and hearing and serving, but if we still hold on to the bodily concept of life, wanting to enjoy and control and possess, we won't really get the benefit. Some benefit, of course, we will get some benefit, but we won't get the full benefit. Srila Prabhupada used to quote a story told by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. One person asked Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur that all of the devotees are following the same process. They're rising early in the morning, they're taking bath, they're putting on fresh clothes and coming to the temple. They're chanting the holy name, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. They're all engaged in the same activities. But some make very clear advancement, and others seem to be remaining more or less the same as they've been. But they're all engaged in the same activities. So why this difference? In reply, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur told the story of the wedding party. There was a wedding party that was, going to attend a marriage across the river. And so they hired a boat. They all got on the boat. It was actually down the river and across. And they thought, well, we'll just, it's a long distance. We'll take rest, and then in the morning we'll arrive. So they all took rest, and in the morning they discovered that they were in the exact same place they were when they got on the boat. So they were all very upset. And they accused the boatman that you were supposed to be rowing the boat, but you didn't row the boat. You probably just went to sleep. But the boatman protested, no, I was up all night rowing very strenuously. So the passenger said, but then why are we in the same place we were when we began? We haven't moved one iota. So they tried to find some explanation, and lo and behold, they discovered that the boatman had neglected to take out the anchor. So he spent the whole night rowing, but he didn't get anywhere. The boat didn't move because he had left the anchor in. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur told the story to make the point that we may work very hard. We may rise early, take bath, put on fresh cloth, come to the temple, attend Mangal Arati, chant our rounds, hear the class, do our work, but not make progress if we don't take the anchor out. The anchor is our material attachments. In other words, if we maintain our material attachments, even though we engage in the external activities of devotional service, we will not make progress. And that is also the 10th offense against the holy name, to maintain material attachments even after hearing so many instructions on the matter. It's not an offense to have material attachments because everyone has material attachments when they come to the association of devotees. But we should not hold on to them. If we hold on to them, then in spite of our efforts, external efforts, we won't make much progress because the attachments will hold us where we are. They'll be like the anchor that's keeping the boat fixed in one place, even though the boatman is rowing, making the effort, but leaving the anchor in. And the two are related. Not having complete faith in the chanting of Hare Krishna and maintaining material attachments even after understanding so many instructions on the matter. We hold on to our attachments because we don't really have faith that by chanting the holy name we will be satisfied. We think we need these material things to be happy. We'll chant on the side, we will chant, but we think we need these material things to make us happy. But as long as we're holding on to our material attachments, we can't really make progress. We can't really relish the nectar contained in the holy name. Srila Rupa Goswami composed a beautiful verse in which he wrote, I do not know how much nectar the two syllables Krishna contain. He said, when I chant, I desire millions of tongues to chant and billions of ears to hear. And when the holy name enters the courtyard of my heart, all of my senses become stunned. I relish transcendental ecstasy within. So these are realized descriptions of the effects of chanting the holy name purely. So we want, as the Shikshastika says, by Sankirtan we can relish the nectar for which we are always anxious. But in order to experience the nectar, we have to give up these material attachments. We have to have faith that Krishna that the holy name can fully satisfy us. So it is, of course, one can gradually let go and gradually relish a little and gradually let go a little more and gradually relish a little more. That's progressive. I mean, it's very gradual, but it's progressive. But sometimes we're just afraid. We don't want to let go of anything. We're afraid if we let go a little, we'll end up letting go more and more, and then in the end, what will be our position? We had one devotee, he's still there in Bombay, Mahaprabhu Das. He was a lawyer, very enthusiastic to preach. And he would invite people to the Juhu temple, and some would just refuse to come. He was saying, you don't have to go to the temple. We'll just go to Govinda's restaurant and have some prasad. You don't even have to go to the temple. You don't have to see the deities. You don't have to hear any discourse. You don't have to buy any books. You don't have to give any donation. You just come to the restaurant. I'll treat you. I'll pay the bill. We'll just have some prasad at Govinda's. But they wouldn't come. Some. Of course, some did, and of course they benefited, but some wouldn't come. And Mahaprabhu said the reason is that they feel that Krishna consciousness is a one-way street. And once you start, you won't be able to turn back. So they didn't even want to take the first step. They didn't want to take the first step because they were afraid it would just take them further and further and further, and then everything they were attached to would be lost. So it's a very funny mentality, but sometimes we have that mentality. We might give a little, but then, that little might lead to more, and that more might lead to still more, and then what will I have left? I'll end up being a beggar on the street. Who will take care of me and my family? And actually, it's true, but not in a bad sense, in a good sense. When Krishna left Vrindavan to go to Mathura and then Dwarka, all the residents of Vrindavan were left in separation. And of course, amongst all the devotees of Krishna in Vrindavan, the gopis were the most attached to him. And among them, Srimati Radharani was the most intensely attached to Krishna. So, after moving to Mathura, Krishna thought that the residents of Vrindavan are suffering too much in my absence, and especially the gopis. So I will send my cousin, my most confidential secretary, Uddhava, with a message to solace them. And Uddhava, he was Krishna's cousin. He had very similar bodily features, and he dressed as Krishna did, and he went there to remind them of Krishna and give them solace. So the gopis, and in particular Srimati Radharani and her exalted ecstasy of separation, you could say, mistook a bumblebee that was hovering around her to be Krishna's messenger. And so she was like criticizing the bumblebee, who was Krishna's messenger. And in the course of it, she was indirectly criticizing Uddhava, who was Krishna's messenger, and Krishna himself. So she was, she began by saying, you're the unreliable servant of an unreliable master, and this going on about Krishna's faults. Of course, Krishna has no faults. This is all just a very high stage of ecstasy. Mad transcendental talks. And so they're criticizing, all the faults, how Krishna came as Vamana and he asked for only 3 steps of land. But when Bali agreed to give him 3 steps of land, he expanded himself into a huge form and took everything away from him. So he cheated him. When he asked for 3 steps of land, those 3 steps were only this big, and then he cheated him, and with the 3 steps he took the whole universe from him. And then as Ramachandra, he killed Bali from behind a tree like a coward. He didn't really face him like a warrior. And he was so attached to Sita that he had Suparnika disfigured just because he was so lusty and attached to Sita. So in this way, she was like criticizing Krishna, not only as she knew him, but in his different incarnations. So then, in this discussion with the bumblebee asked, well, if Krishna's, a cheater and a coward and lusty and all the different things you say about him, why don't you just forget about him? Why don't you just leave him? And Srimati Radharani said, well, we can live without Krishna. We don't need Krishna, but we can't live without talking about Krishna. And then there's a beautiful verse that anyone who engages in talks about Krishna, nectarian talks about Krishna, will become a penniless beggar and just wander around Vrindavan, searching for Krishna. So it's presented in a negative way as a criticism, but actually it's a great glorification of Krishna and Krishna Katha. And the Acharya's comment that who are these penniless beggars wandering around Vrindavan looking for Krishna? They're the most exalted Paramahamsas who are, relishing internal bliss. Externally they're penniless, but internally they have the greatest wealth. So if that happens, we should be so fortunate. We should be so fortunate. It's like once one man came to meet Srila Prabhupada in his tent at the Ardha Kumbh Mela in 1971 in Allahabad. And he said, Swamiji, what if everyone becomes Krishna conscious? What will happen to the world? And Srila Prabhupada replied, that's like asking, what if everyone becomes rich? Who will be the chauffeur? He said it's not possible that everyone will become rich, but still everyone wants to become rich. And nobody stops becoming rich because they think, oh, if everyone becomes rich, who will be my driver? And then he said, the problem is not that too many people will become Krishna conscious. Do you think that's the problem? The problem is that not enough people will become Krishna conscious. So that's the problem. Not enough people want to become Krishna conscious. And the ones who want to be Krishna conscious, maybe they don't want to become Krishna conscious enough. It's a little, like Krishna can have sarvaloka, but I just want, a little part of just one loka. And it's okay. It's okay. But if we do take this prescription, take the medicine as directed by the doctor, then we will really get everything we want, more than we could imagine. Actually, we can't even imagine the happiness that exists in pure devotional service in Krishna consciousness. So, Srila Prabhupada has formed the International Society for Krishna Consciousness for us, so we can engage in the Sankirtan Yajna fully and experience the nectar for which we are always anxious. And as he said, transform this pandemonium of hell here in the material world into the spiritual world of Vaikuntha. And in the end, go back home, back to Godhead. Hare Krishna. Are there any questions or comments? Chaitanya Chandra Prabhu.
Our intelligence, our words, our life, whatever we can, does that constitute giving up the material attachments? Is now, we've understood, when the class I've understood it, it's very necessary for me to give up those material attachments so I can actually taste the holy name. So as a recap, is that what it means? Is this a message that we should support the Sankirtan, like preach to whoever we meet, or engage in these activities? That is the formula for giving up. That means if we do those things, does that mean that we're giving up those attachments? Or how do we
Yeah, if by constitution we're servants. So either we serve Krishna or we serve Maya. So we have all these things, our life, our wealth, our intelligence, our words. So if we engage them 100% in the service of the Sankirtan movement, then we're not engaging them in the service of Maya or for sense gratification. If we engage them 50%, then, we can say that we're 50% given up material attachments, but 50% keeping them. The example of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and the wedding party externally the person was engaging in the activities of devotional service, but internally he was holding on to his material attachments. And mind, manasa deha geha yoki chamar, mind, when we chant the holy name, our mind should be given to the holy name. Otherwise we can, with our hands we can be playing mridanga, and with our tongue and mouths we can be articulating the syllables of the Maha Mantra, but our mind could be somewhere else. But manasa deha geha yoki chamar, whatever, including the mind, if we surrender it to Krishna, then it means we're giving up our material attachments. And association is very important. Association of pure devotees is very important. By their association we get faith, we get taste, we get understanding, we get inspiration. We can't do it alone, can't do it on our own. We need good association, which is available in this ISKCON. Mahadev Prabhu?
I was asking Maharaj, how do we get rid of these attachments?
Oh, how do we get rid of the attachments? Well, we have our 5 processes. Sadhu Sangha, associating with advanced devotees. Nama Kirtana, chanting the holy name. Bhagavat Shravana, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. Mathura Vasa, living in a holy place like Mathura Vrindavan, Mayapur, Jagannath Puri, and Murti Shraddhanvita Sevana, worshipping the deity with faith and reverence. These are the processes. We talk about pulling up the anchor, but what it is we develop a higher taste. I mean, it seems like a sort of a paradox. You have to give up attachments to experience the higher taste. And then, when you experience the higher taste, you lose your attachment for the lower things. But you do both at the same time. Do both at the same time. You just have to have faith. It's like a leap of faith. You just have to have faith. Like we discussed yesterday, go trip varanam tata. One has to have faith that Krishna will maintain one. Raksha isyati iti vishwasya. One has to have firm faith that Krishna will protect him. Doesn't mean we don't take care of our normal affairs, but it means when we're chanting, specifically when we're chanting, our minds are not thinking about, how am I going to maintain myself? How am I going to protect myself? And when we're chanting, if we can actually surrender to the holy name, then our material attachments will slacken and the two things will happen simultaneously. We'll experience more and more taste, and at the same time we'll give up more and more of our attachments. The Bhagavatam gives the example that when a person eats, he automatically, his hunger is satisfied. He becomes nourished, and he feels satisfaction. Bhakti parashano bhavo viyanti anatyacha cha. That by engaging in pure devotional service, one automatically gets detachment. Bhakti parashano bhavo, that means direct perception of God, and virakti anyatra cha, and detachment. So by eating, one becomes free from hunger. That means by bhakti, one becomes free from material desires. That's virakti. And one gets nourished. That means one gets spiritual strength. And one feels satisfied. It means one has direct experience of Krishna. So it all, we have to try all at the same time, but everything happens at the same time. Or one after the other they happen, but without any separate endeavor. And that's why Prabhupada used to say, that you can feel the effects of progress in Krishna consciousness. You don't have to ask anyone. It's like if you've had a meal and you feel satisfied, you don't have to ask someone, did I just eat a meal? Do I feel satisfied? You know. So when one is actually progressing in Krishna consciousness, he experiences it. He doesn't have to ask someone to certify. He's experienced it. So we should have that experience. And if we're not, it's, because of offenses. And that the offense of inattention, the offense of maintaining material attachments. Rasaraj, Dharma was first, then Rasaraj, and then Sarva.
One quick question, Maharaj, and you may have already answered it, but does the gradual process sort of gradually get us there, or does the gradual process get us to where we say, I can't give it up, I can't give up on material attachments, Krishna, you have to help me. Like, no Thakur, he said, I can't do it, and plucked out his eyes. Is it like, for some people, the gradual process, you just gradually realize, oh, okay, I've given up material desires, it's gradually, or does the gradual path get you to a point where you have to really swim and say, it's impossible, I can't overcome it.
My dear Dharma Prabhu, we cannot do anything on our own. We only begin to make progress when we realize we can't do it. We need Krishna's help. As long as we think we can do it ourselves, of course, we do need to make our effort. I shouldn't discount our personal effort. But our personal effort alone is not enough. We also need Krishna's mercy. And the combination of our personal effort and Krishna's mercy will allow us, not allow us, but Krishna will allow us to experience his beauty. So what you said is actually true, that we make our best effort, but eventually we will come to the stage where we realize that our effort alone isn't enough. We need mercy. We can't capture Krishna by our own effort. Krishna will be captured when he sees our effort and is pleased by our effort, but when by his mercy he allows himself to be captured by us. in our minds, in our hearts. In our arms. Rasaraj?
Thank you, Lord. Seeing that it is easier for me to see the material attachments in someone else and to see the material attachments in myself. And I think vice versa is true too. I think another devotee would be in a better position to see your material attachments. Whereas I'm thinking, I'm fine, I'm not attached, I'm doing whatever I can, I should. But that exchange does not take place like that. I mean, I can't go to someone and say, Prabhuji, I think you're attached to your wife too much. And I do not know how that exchange can take place, or is it at all necessary? Because I think from the third perspective, it's easier to see my material attachments to someone else. And I can work on it like that. But without that interaction, and I don't see that happening, it's kind of difficult to move ahead. Always trying to evaluate myself from my own senses. Almost as things feels like attachments.
Well, yeah, I think you should be more interested in having someone point out your attachments than in you're pointing out their attachments. So I don't think we even need to discuss the second part. We'll just discuss the first part. You can ask, some friends or some authorities to tell you how you can improve, what your weaknesses are, and how you can become stronger. But you have to really mean it and want it, because otherwise, if someone is actually perceptive enough to see what your attachments are, he'll also be perceptive enough to see if you really want to have your attachments exposed, or whether, like, you just had the thought in class and you think it's like a good thing to do. But you can ask. You can ask, and if you're really, sincere about it and eager to hear, what your weak points are and how you can improve, someone might help you. But the thing is that if you try to chant with attention, it'll be pretty clear where your attachments are, because your mind will go away from the holy name to the different attachments. But the other is also good, to take guidance from others. Actually, confessing has value. Confessing has value. Because what you're saying is someone should tell you what your attachments are. But if you make that effort to chant with attachment, you make that effort to chant with attention, and eventually you come to the point where you realize it's not within your power to capture the holy name in your mind. Maybe for a few moments or a few minutes, but then just pray to Krishna for help. But then it's also a process outside of the time when you're actually chanting to work on the attachments, to work on faith. to work on faith. And so yeah, if you look for association that can increase your faith, then that will naturally make it easier for you to give up your attachments. Sarvabhauma Prabhu.
In the Bhagavatam, in the Dalapur Kshetra, it seemed like the first Arjuna was ready to fight, and then Krishna took him in front of the other army and described how he saw Bhishma and Drona. And when he saw these things that he was attached to, then became weaker or confused. And I was just curious about the process where, for us to give up attachments, if they have to be shown to us, or somehow the process whereby Krishna, we can't overcome attachments until it's somehow tested to see if I wonder if you could comment on that.
You're saying that at first Arjuna was willing to fight, then when he actually saw his relatives in front of him, his attachment made him question the fight. So it was a sort of test. So do we need a test? Well, we're always being tested. I mean, some are bigger than others. But in one sense, every time we sit down to chant our japa, we're being tested. Is my mind going to be on the holy name, or is my mind going to be somewhere else? So if we're sincere and serious about our practices, every moment is a test. This moment, am I going to engage my mind in Krishna, or is my mind going to be engaged in other thoughts? Sometimes there are bigger tests that affect us in more momentous ways. And those are also Krishna's mercy to help us progress. And the basic attachment is the body. All the other attachments are related to the body. And eventually we're going to have to give up the body, as sure as death. So that's the final test. And there will be other tests leading up to the final test, which should help prepare us for the final test. But we're an illusion. It is an illusion. Generally, devotees think that when they wake up the next day, things are going to be more or less the same as they were the night before. But it's not like that. One day, it's not going to be the same as the day before. One day you're going to find out you have cancer, heart disease, or someone dear to you. It's not going to be the same. There are going to be such situations. And whatever it is, whatever the variety of the test is, the way to pass the test is to take more shelter of Krishna. Final test, you have to give up the body. And are you going to be able to take shelter of Krishna at the final moment? Chaitanya Chandra Prabhu?
I was just saying that the soul's nature is to be attached. Our nature is to have attachment.
Yes.
So we have to become very attached to spiritual, we have to develop spiritual attachments.
Correct.
So we have to become attached to association with Vaishnavas, we have to become attached to chanting our rounds nicely, we have to become attached to taking prasadam, attached to hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, attached to training our kids how to be devotees. We always have to have attachments as part of the nature. That's what the devotee says, Krishna is mine, Krishna is yours. We want to have attachments that are spiritual. We can't give up and become attached to something spiritual.
That is the correct conclusion. Perfect conclusion. In fact, Tamal Krishna Goswami, when he visited me in Santa Barbara and Carpinteria, he was sort of reflecting on why devotees fall down. And he said that to avoid falling down, which means to ensure that one continues to make progress, one should have taste for one's spiritual practices, and one should have intimate loving relationships with advanced devotees, which is exactly what you said. Well, thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
The Giriraj Swami Maharaj.